Chapter 1: The Discovery. The remote town of Black Hollow, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, had a history shrouded in mystery and tragedy. The town had boomed in the late 1800s due to the discovery of rich veins of silver in the nearby Black Hollow mine. But the mine's history was plagued by unexplained accidents, disappearances, and rumors of hauntings. By the early 1900s, the mine was abandoned, and the town fell into decay. A group of explorers, James, an experienced caver, Sarah, an archaeologist with a fascination for abandoned places, Tom, a documentary filmmaker, and Lisa, a paranormal investigator, were drawn to the mine by the legends and the prospect of uncovering its secrets. They arrived in Black Hollow with a mix of excitement and trepidation, determined to document their findings. Chapter 2: Into the Depths. The entrance to the Black Hollow mine was a gaping maw, partially obscured by overgrown vegetation. The group set up their equipment, preparing for their descent. As they entered the mine, the air grew cooler, and the light from their headlamps flickered against the damp walls. The passageways were narrow and winding, with wooden beams supporting the crumbling ceiling. James led the way, mapping their route to ensure they could find their way back. Sarah marveled at the mine structure, noting the intricate network of tunnels and the remnants of old mining equipment. Tom captured every moment on camera, while Lisa used her EMF meter to detect any paranormal activity. As they ventured deeper, they noticed strange markings on the walls, symbols that Sarah identified as ancient and possibly connected to local folklore. The atmosphere grew heavier, and a sense of unease settled over the group. Chapter 3: The First Signs. Hours passed, and the explorers found themselves in a vast cavern, illuminated by their powerful lights. The cavern was filled with abandoned tools, rusted carts, and piles of ore. Sarah examined the symbols more closely, noting that they seemed to tell a story of a curse placed upon the mine by the indigenous people who once lived in the region. Suddenly, Lisa's EMF meter spiked, and a cold breeze swept through the cavern. The group felt an inexplicable chill, and the sound of distant whispers echoed through the tunnels. Tom captured the eerie scene on camera, while James and Sarah tried to rationalize the phenomena. Without warning, the ground beneath them shook, and a section of the cavern collapsed, separating James from the rest of the group. Panic set in as they realized the gravity of their situation. James assured them through their walkie-talkies that he was unhurt and would try to find another way back to them. Chapter 4: The Unseen Presence. As James navigated the dark, labyrinthine tunnels alone, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Strange noises, footsteps, whispers, and the faint sound of breathing seemed to follow him. He tried to stay calm, using his map to find an alternate route back to the cavern. Meanwhile, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa attempted to find a way around the collapsed section to reunite with James. As they explored the tunnels, Lisa's EMF meter continued to spike, and Tom's camera picked up strange anomalies, flickering lights, shadowy figures, and unexplained distortions. Sarah stumbled upon an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. The entries, written by a miner named William, detailed the harrowing experiences of the workers who had vanished in the mine. William described seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing disembodied voices, and witnessing colleagues being dragged into the darkness by unseen forces. Chapter 5: The Haunting Intensifies. The deeper James went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. He encountered remnants of the mine's tragic past, bloodstains on the walls, torn clothing, and tools scattered as if dropped in a hurry. The whispers grew louder, and he began to see fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of his vision. In the main cavern, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa were similarly plagued by terrifying experiences. Lisa reported seeing the apparition of a miner, his face twisted in agony, who seemed to be trying to communicate with her. Tom's camera recorded strange, unexplainable phenomena, including the figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothing who appeared and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Sarah continued to read William's journal, which grew more disturbing with each entry. William wrote about a malevolent presence in the mine, an ancient entity that fed on fear and despair. He described rituals performed by the indigenous people to seal the entity within the mine, warning that disturbing the site could unleash its wrath. Chapter 6: The Ritual Chamber. James, disoriented and frightened, stumbled upon a hidden chamber deep within the mine. The chamber was adorned with the same ancient symbols they had seen earlier, but these were more intricate and foreboding. At the center of the chamber was an altar, surrounded by remnants of offerings and the skeletal remains of miners. As he examined the chamber, James felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He realized that the chamber was the source of the malevolent energy pervading the mine. The symbols on the walls depicted a ritual to seal the entity, but it required a human sacrifice. Back in the main cavern, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa found a narrow passage that led them deeper into the mine. They eventually stumbled upon the same chamber James had found. Reunited, they shared their discoveries and the contents of William's journal. They understood that the entity was growing stronger and that their presence had awakened it. Chapter 7: The Unraveling. As they debated their next move, the ground trembled and the temperature plummeted. The whispers intensified, and the shadowy figures became more tangible. The entity was no longer content to merely haunt them, it wanted to claim them. James, drawing on his experience as a caver, suggested that they perform the ritual described in the journal to reseal the entity. Sarah, Tom, and Lisa reluctantly agreed, knowing it was their only chance of survival. They prepared the altar, using the remnants of the old offerings and their own belongings to complete the ritual. As they began the incantation, the chamber was filled with a deafening roar, and the shadowy figures converged upon them. The temperature dropped to freezing, and the entity's presence became almost palpable, a dark, oppressive force that threatened to crush them. Chapter 8: The Sacrifice. The ritual required a sacrifice, and the group knew that one of them had to stay behind to complete it. James, feeling responsible for leading them into the mine, volunteered. Despite their protests, he insisted that it was the only way to save them all. With heavy hearts, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa continued the incantation as James took his place on the altar. The entity's rage grew, and it lashed out, trying to prevent the completion of the ritual. The shadows became more aggressive, and the chamber shook violently. As the final words of the incantation were spoken, a blinding light filled the chamber. The entity let out a furious, otherworldly scream as it was forced back into the depths of the mine. The ground trembled one last time before the light faded, and the oppressive presence lifted. Chapter 9: The Escape. The mine began to collapse, and Sarah, Tom, and Lisa fled, narrowly escaping the falling debris. They reached the surface, exhausted and traumatized, but alive. The entrance to the mine sealed itself, as if the earth was closing over a wound. They returned to Black Hollow, haunted by the loss of their friend and the horrors they had witnessed. They shared their story with the authorities, who were skeptical but agreed to seal off the area to prevent others from venturing into the mine. Chapter 10: The Aftermath. The surviving members of the group struggled to move on with their lives. Sarah dedicated herself to researching and preserving the history of places like Black Hollow, hoping to prevent future tragedies. Tom released his footage as a documentary, raising awareness about the dangers of exploring abandoned places and the existence of the supernatural. Lisa continued her work as a paranormal investigator, her experiences in the mine fueling her determination to uncover the truth about the otherworldly. The legend of the Black Hollow mine lived on, a cautionary tale for adventurers and thrill-seekers. The mine remained sealed, but locals claimed to hear whispers and see shadowy figures on foggy nights, as if the entity's influence still lingered. Chapter 11: The New Expedition. Years later, a new group of explorers, intrigued by the legends and the mysterious disappearance of the previous team, decided to venture into the Black Hollow mine. Led by Alex, a seasoned caver with a fascination for the paranormal, the team consisted of Mia, a historian, Ben, a filmmaker, and Emma, a psychic. They arrived in Black Hollow, now a ghost town, with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The entrance to the mine was overgrown, and the air was heavy with a sense of foreboding. Undeterred, they prepared their equipment and entered the mine. Chapter 12: The Return. As they ventured deeper into the mine, they encountered the same eerie phenomena that had plagued the previous group. The air grew colder, and strange symbols adorned the walls. Mia, recognizing the symbols from her research, warned the group of the mine's dark history and the curse that lay within. Emma, using her psychic abilities, sensed the presence of restless spirits and a malevolent entity. She communicated with the spirits, learning of the horrors they had endured and their desire for release. The group pressed on, determined to uncover the truth and bring peace to the tortured souls. Chapter 13. The Final Confrontation. The team reached the hidden chamber, where they found the remnants of the previous group's ritual and the shattered altar. The air was thick with tension, and the whispers grew louder. Emma, sensing the entity's rage, urged the group to leave, but Alex insisted on completing the investigation. As they explored the chamber, the entity's presence became more palpable. Shadowy figures materialized, and the ground shook violently. The entity, furious at the intrusion, lashed out, causing the walls to crack and debris to fall. In a desperate attempt to appease the spirits, Emma began to perform the ritual described in the journal. The entity's rage intensified, and it tried to prevent the completion of the ritual. The shadows became more aggressive, and the chamber shook violently. Chapter 14, The Ultimate Sacrifice ***. Emma realized that the only way to complete the ritual was to make a sacrifice, just as James had done years before. She volunteered, knowing it was the only way to save her friends and bring peace to the restless spirits. With a heavy heart, Alex, Mia, and Ben continued the incantation as Emma took her place on the altar. The entity's rage grew, and it lashed out, trying to prevent the completion of the ritual. The shadows became more aggressive, and the chamber shook violently. As the final words of the incantation were spoken, a blinding light filled the chamber. The entity let out a furious, otherworldly scream as it was forced back into the depths of the mine. The ground trembled one last time before the light faded, and the oppressive presence lifted. Chapter 15, The Escape. The mine began to collapse, and Alex, Mia, and Ben fled, narrowly escaping the falling debris. They reached the surface, exhausted and traumatized, but alive. The entrance to the mine sealed itself, as if the earth was closing over a wound. They returned to Black Hollow, haunted by the loss of their friend and the horrors they had witnessed. They shared their story with the authorities, who were skeptical but agreed to seal off the area to prevent others from venturing into the mine. Chapter 16, The Legacy. The surviving members of the group struggled to move on with their lives. Alex dedicated himself to researching and preserving the history of places like Black Hollow, hoping to prevent future tragedies. Ben released his footage as a documentary, raising awareness about the dangers of exploring abandoned places and the existence of the supernatural. Mia continued her work as a historian, her experiences in the mine fueling her determination to uncover the truth about the otherworldly. The legend of the Black Hollow mine lived on, a cautionary tale for adventurers and thrill-seekers. The mine remained sealed, but locals claim to hear whispers and see shadowy figures on foggy nights, as if the entity's influence still lingered. Epilogue, The Unending Haunt. Years later, the story of the Black Hollow mine continued to capture the imagination of those drawn to the paranormal. The mine's dark legacy was a testament to the courage and sacrifice of those who dared to face the unknown. The entity remained a lurking presence, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the mysteries that lie just beyond our grasp. As the legend grew, so did the fascination with the mine, ensuring that its haunted history would never be forgotten. The spirits of the Black Hollow mine, both restless and avenged, would forever haunt the memories of those who dared to uncover its secrets.
Don't forget to subscribe.